between the Lakers and Nets, and then I want to revisit this question after this next signing. If the finals today were the Lakers and Nets, just who you take?
Is everyone healthy? That's the main question.
Everyone's healthy. Rosters are as they are now.
Listen, it's Nets in 5, and it's not even close because,
Wow.
yeah, no, and hear me out. You look at each position, and the Nets, Kyrie, who do the Lakers have at point guard? You can say, does LeBron? He's kind of a point guard, but then you look at James Harden, arguably the best scorer in the league. You got Kevin Durant, the 7-footer who can pull up from 30. I mean, and then you combine that with their veterans and their shooters with Joe Harris. I just think that they have more than the Lakers. I really do. I just think that, and I know the Nets, people think that they're not as deep as they once were with losing Jared Allen and D'Angelo Russell and a number of other pieces, but they've retooled their roster in a way that is made to win a championship. And I think that the Nets will win it, probably against the Lakers in 5, maybe 6 games. I just think LeBron, I don't know if he can really carry a team like he used to. He hasn't shown much signs of slowing down yet, but you never know. I have a feeling.
I want to add another contender to the mix before we revisit that debate, and it's the team that signed DeMarcus Cousins. Talking about big names that had big impacts on the court, and they're now maybe just big names. But Clippers both the initial report was that they would plan to sign Cousins next week. Reports came out almost instantly after that the signing was going to be complete, would be done, would be official, and that the Clippers would be adding Cousins as depth. Obviously, because of Boogie's on-court contributions, it might be easy, and just the Clippers center depth, it might be easy to write this off as the least impactful of these 3 transactions. But to zoom out a little bit, just in regards to both, or not both, but all 3 of the Lakers, Clippers, and Nets, which team do you see as having improved the most?
That's hard. I'd have to go with the Lakers because Andre Drummond, with both Anthony Davis and LeBron out, Andre Drummond brings a lot of leadership into that locker room, but he also fills the void left in the middle by Davis and also by Dwight Howard and JaVale McGee from last year's championship team. People forget how important and they were in that championship, rebounding and blocking shots, things that people may not notice, but fill up the stat sheet significantly and play a huge role in the outcome of the game. Now, Drummond, yeah, he's not a great shooter. He's more of an inside player, but he can get rebounds. He can block shots. He can hustle up and down the floor. He's still young. He's 27 years old. And, when you put a player on a good team, they're happier. He was, he wasn't in a great situation in Cleveland. He hadn't played for about a month because he was looking for a buyout. He finally got that buyout. I think that Drummond, he's in, Los Angeles, beautiful weather. I think he's going to be happy. I think that you're going to see the Lakers not fall down as much as they would have with LeBron and Davis out now that they have the addition of Drummond.
For sure. I think Drummond just helps specifically fill the gap left, as you said, by those rim protecting centers last year. The Lakers beat the Houston Rockets in the playoffs last year by going big, by putting a center in the paint to deter James Harden from driving and kicking, driving and scoring, whatever it may have been. They wanted to keep James Harden out of the paint. They put a rim protecting center in the paint. They allowed Anthony Davis to, in a Giannis-like manner, just patrol the court and be an overall defensive stopper. This season, we've seen the Lakers go a little smaller, right? They have Montrezl Harrell in the center room there now, where he's only 6'9". You see them sacrificing a bit of that physical presence in exchange for pace, potentially a little better floor spacing. However, with the opportunity to add Drummond, someone who has not necessarily accomplished anything in the NBA,
Yeah, fair to say.
From the role of lead of the team from the center position, I think putting him in a situation where he doesn't have to create offense because LeBron James is going to do it, and he doesn't have to finish plays because Anthony Davis is going to do it at an elite level, and he can just benefit from the flow of the offense. This should be a situation where we get to see Andre Drummond's tools and physical abilities and skill on the court show itself in more unexpected ways almost. When you're watching Andre Drummond on the Cavaliers or on the Pistons, you're praying that he puts up enough points as the lead option to make it not a blowout loss and just a regular loss. On the Lakers, this guy's going to be able to run up and down the court, crash the glass, play off of Anthony Davis as his fellow front court mate. It's not comparable to spending time in Detroit and Cleveland. I think we've seen from a plethora of different players how impactful play with guys like Curry, Paul, LeBron can be. I wanted to revisit the contender check-in we did there. Now that we've brought the Clippers into the picture as well, you picked the Nets over the Lakers. If the Clippers were the Nets finals opponent over the Lakers, would that answer change, or do you think that Brooklyn offense is just unstoppable?
Look, I do think the Brooklyn offense at full strength is unstoppable. And it is weird to just imagine the Clippers in the finals for so many reasons. First off, they're the Clippers, right? You can't really ever think of a time that they were ever in the finals. But also just that playoff meltdown last year, all the pandemic P memes, and just Paul George just struggling so much, and his playoff woes, and Kawhi Leonard not being able to, recapture that, clutch magic he may have had in Toronto. And, there's a lot to take into account here, but I think the firepower, like I've said before, the Nets, they just bring so much to the table. Shooters, leaders. They space the floor really well. Joe Harris, arguably the best shooter in the game, with Klay Thompson out and Steph Curry not probably going to make it to the finals this year. So he's going to be that guy, that shooter that'll be the difference. And boy, it's going to come down to injuries, because AD, he's out indefinitely with that, I believe it's a calf injury. Huge question mark for the Lakers.
We'll see. I saw a report that said we might even see Davis back before James.
Oh.
So that will be interesting to monitor. I think the status of both is uncertain for now. Of course, in series between potentially the Lakers and Clippers, or the Nets and one of those two Western teams, any of these would be an incredible matchup.